I always thought betrayal would come like a storm sudden, loud, unmistakable. But when I found out, it was quiet, numb, like the air had been sucked out of my lungs without warning. And all I could do was sit there, blinking at a phone screen, waiting for my heart to catch up to what my eyes had seen. It started with a message, a single message. "Are you okay with what happened last night? I still can't believe we did that, ... Especially with him being married and all. I didn't know the number. But the photo on the profile, that I knew. Rachel, my friend, my best friend, the woman I'd shared secrets with, who had been there. For every major milestone in my life, from my engagement to the miscarriage I had 3 years ago, she was the one who held my hand when I cried on bathroom floors, who laughed beside me over cheap wine and late-night takeout. And now she was the one who slept with my husband. My fingers trembled so violently I could barely hold the phone. I read the message again, hoping I had misunderstood. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I told myself maybe it wasn't my husband. Maybe she was talking about someone else. But who else could it be? The timing he'd come home. Late that night, said he was with his team, working late on some quarterly nonsense I pretended to understand. I didn't question it. I never questioned him, until now. I stared at the screen for so long my vision blurred. Then I did something I'm still not. Proud of V clicked on the little camera icon at the top of her chat, opened our thread, our 1,000 text-long chain of laughter, tears, memes, voice notes, suddenly contaminated. I scrolled back, looking for signs, warnings, clues that I had missed, and I found them. "Oh, you're lucky to have him, girl. I swear, if he wasn't yours. I can't believe he remembered my favorite cake. Such a sweetheart. Haha, don't be mad, but I stole a pic of your husband for my gym motivation. Don't tell him." Jokes, banter, flirting cloaked in friendship. I laughed at those messages when they came. I trusted her. And then I opened my husband's messages. I shouldn't have. But I had to. He hadn't deleted anything. That told me. One of two things. He was either careless or he didn't care. Maybe both. I scrolled through the usual work stuff, reminders, news alerts, and then I saw her name. Just a first initial R, but I knew. I opened the thread. It wasn't even that long. Just a few days worth of texts. But it was enough. Last night was unexpected but amazing. Can't stop thinking about the way you looked at me. We have to be more careful. She's not stupid. That was me. That was all I was now, a third-person inconvenience in their secret world. I don't remember crying. I don't remember screaming. I don't remember anything except walking into the kitchen and putting the kettle on, as if tea would fix the crack tearing through my ribcage. He walked in an hour later, whistling. I watched him take off his shoes, set his keys down in the little ceramic bowl I'd bought on our honeymoon, and smile at me like nothing was wrong. I think that was the moment something in me snapped. I didn't confront him that night, or the next.
I needed time.
Figure out what hurt more, his betrayal or hers. And the more I thought about it, the more it was her face I saw every time I closed my eyes. Her voice I heard laughing at some inside joke while she wrapped herself around my life like a parasite. How do you grieve to people at once? It's like trying to breathe underwater. The air's there, but it's above you, unreachable, and all you can do is sink days past. He kissed me like normal, slept beside me like normal, said I love you with the same rhythm he always had. And every time he touched me, I felt like I was wearing someone else's skin. I started watching them, not in a crazy stalker way, but in the way you study a puzzle you know has a piece missing. I saw the way her eyes lingered just a beat too long when we were all together. I noticed how he laughed a little louder at her jokes, how he always poured her a drink before asking me if I wanted one.
I like subtle things.
Things you don't catch unless you're already suspicious. And then it happened. The slip dash up. We were at a barbecue, one of those casual, sunny afternoon things at Rachel's place. Her husband, Kevin, was flipping burgers on the grill, oblivious. Our kids played in the sprinklers, screaming with joy. And my husband, my perfectly loyal husband, had his phone out, typing, smiling. Rachel's phone buzzed. She glanced down, smirked, looked up, and then our eyes met. She flinched. That was all I needed. I didn't cause a scene. I didn't scream. I simply smiled and turned away, swallowing the acid rising in my throat. But that night, I lay awake beside my sleeping husband, staring at the ceiling. Planning, you see, I've always been the quiet one, the peacemaker, the forgiver. But betrayal changes something inside you. It burns, scars, sharpens. And somewhere in that darkness, a question whispered itself into my mind. What if I did to her what she did to me? At first, I dismissed it. It wasn't me. It wasn't the kind of person who played games with people's lives. It wasn't cruel. But the thought stayed. It visited me in the shower. At work, while stirring pasta. It curled around my bones and made a nest there, revenge, not just against him, against her. Because if I was going to burn, they were going to burn with me. It started small. I began talking to Kevin more. Not flirting, just noticing him, laughing at his stories, asking about his work, his hobbies. I listened, and he was kind, genuine, so unlike the man I'd married, who now felt like a stranger wearing my husband's face. Kevin had no idea. I could see it in his eyes. He loved Rachel, still wore his ring with pride, still looked at her like she was the sun. Poor man, I wanted to hate him, but I couldn't because he didn't know. And the thing is, neither did I once we were. The collateral damage, the ones who'd played by the rules and still lost. So when Kevin invited me out for coffee, I said yes. It wasn't a date. At least that's what I told myself. But sitting across from him in that quiet little cafe, watching the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled, something stirred in me. Not attraction. Not yet, just understanding. Recognition to people, broken in the same way he told me about his marriage. About how Rachel had been distant lately, cold. He chalked it up to stress, hormones, work. I didn't correct him, but I wanted to scream. She didn't love him. Not like that. She loved the chase, the thrill. And she had chased my husband straight. Into my bed and out of her own. I wondered as I sipped my coffee how she would feel if she knew I was sitting there with him. Her husband, her loyal, sweet, oblivious husband. The thought didn't repulse me. It thrilled me. I left that cafe, with my heart thudding in my ears and a plan crystallizing in my mind. If they wanted fire, I'd give them wildfire. It wasn't supposed to go this far. That's what I kept telling myself as I stood in front of my closet, slipping on the blue dress I hadn't worn since before everything broke. The one he used to say brought out my eyes. Now I was hoping someone else would notice it tanned, not for the first time in months. I cared how I looked. Cared what someone might think of me. Kevin had invited me over. Just a small dinner, he said. Rachel was working late. My husband had a company event he conveniently forgot to invite me to, so I went, and I wore that damn dress. He greeted me with that same easy, grateful smile. It's that smile of a man who still believed in people, still believed in her. He had no idea. What kind of woman shared his bed at night? What kind of woman wore two faces, one for the world and one for my husband? He poured me wine. He cooked. Actual food, not frozen, not takeout. I hadn't had someone cook for me in so long. Nearly made me cry. We sat on his porch, candles flickering between us, cicadas buzzing in the warm dusk air. I'm glad you came, he said, his voice soft. I don't know why, but talking to you lately, it helps. You're easy to be around. And I smiled, because I knew exactly why. Because she wasn't. Because Rachel was too busy sneaking around and lying. And I was there, listening, looking at him with a softness I hadn't felt in years. I wondered for just a moment what it would have been like if I had met Kevin first, if my husband had never existed, if Rachel had never smiled with that sly glint in her eyes and claimed me as her friend only to stab me in the back with the man I shared vows with. But he did. And she did. And I was here now. Do you ever feel like you missed something, Kevin? Asked suddenly, gazing out into the night. Like there's something happening around you, and everyone knows, but you don't? I almost dropped my glass. His face was unreadable, but his voice cracked on that last word. I set my wine down. Kevin, I started, but the truth clung to my throat like honey and thorns. He looked at me, really looked at me. Sometimes I said, finally, sometimes I think we only see what we want to see. He nodded, slowly, and then in a voice so quiet I could have imagined it. Is she cheating on me? The words didn't surprise me, but the pain in them did. He already knew. Somewhere deep down, he already knew. I didn't answer right away. I could have told him, laid it all bare, showed it. Him the messages, the dates, the times, the betrayal. But instead, I reached across the table and took his hand, and something shifted. His thumb brushed mine, tentative, careful, like I was fragile. Like I mattered. My husband hadn't looked at me like that in years. And then his phone buzzed. He let go and picked it up. I saw her name flash on the screen. Rachel. Working late, he muttered, putting the phone face down. Always working late. I stared at it, and that's when it happened. The moment I crossed a line, I couldn't uncross. I stood up, around the table, and kissed him. It wasn't fiery. It wasn't desperate. It was sad, slow, almost apologetic. But it felt right, and when I pulled back, he didn't speak. He just looked at me with this shattered kind of wonder, like he didn't know whether to thank me or fall apart in front of me. I shouldn't have. I started, but he interrupted. No, should have. We didn't sleep together that night. Not yet, but the silence between us buzzed with things unspoken. I left, heart pounding, dress clinging to my skin in the summer night, and drove home to a husband who didn't even notice how late I was. He was already asleep. Phone in hand, Rachel's name on the screen. I didn't read the messages. I didn't have to. The next few days were a blur. Rachel sent me selfies, tagged me in memes, acted like nothing had happened, like we were still best friends. I played along. We should do a girls' brunch soon. Miss your face. Girl, you better not be stealing my husband. Lol. The irony. She had no idea, but Kevin knew now. I didn't have to say the words. I could see it in his eyes every time we bumped into each other, and then it happened. It was a Friday night. Rachel was out of town for a conference. My husband was working late. Kevin texted me, "Are you up?" 3 words. I sat on my couch for a full 10 minutes, staring at the screen, heart racing then. I typed back, "Yes." He sent the address, a hotel, downtown. I didn't ask why. I already knew. I showed up 20 minutes later. My pulse was in my ears. My legs felt weak. My throat was dry. He opened the door in a black shirt, no smile, just eyes full of all the pain we'd both been holding back. "I booked this 2 hours ago," he said quietly. I don't know what I was thinking. "I do," I replied, and then I kissed him again. Harder this time, not out of sadness, but something else. Desire, anger, power. We didn't talk after that, not with words. We made something messy and beautiful, and wrong and real. I won't lie. Part of me felt sick, but another part felt vindicated because for the first time in months, maybe years, felt seen, desired, chosen. Afterwards, he lay beside me, tracing my shoulder with his fingertips, whispering things that made me ache in places I thought had died. Deserved so much better. And I believed him. But then he said the thing that shattered the illusion. What happens now? I didn't have an answer, because this wasn't a love story. This was revenge. This was war. And I had just fired my first shot. When I got home at 2 a.m., my husband was in the kitchen, drunk, smiling. "Where were you?" he asked, slurring slightly. "With Rachel," I lied. His smile faltered for a second. "Right," he said. "Of course." I kissed him on the cheek and went upstairs, took a shower, washed Kevin off my skin, but I couldn't wash away what I'd done, or what I was about to do next. Because this wasn't over, not even close. And if she wanted to play dirty, so would I. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? I lay in our marital bed under the covers beside a man who had broken every vow he'd ever made to me, while I held a secret even darker than his own. The ceiling above me swirled like water, pulling me deeper. into something I no longer had control over. I should have felt guilt, regret, but what I felt was power, a sick, bitter kind of power, the kind that rises in your throat like bile, but settles in your chest like warmth. I knew I had become someone else, someone colder, someone sharper, someone who didn't care anymore about the rules that only ever protected people like Rachel. The next morning I made breakfast, eggs, toast, his favorite coffee. He walked into the kitchen, kissed the top of my head, told me I looked beautiful, and I smiled. I smiled like nothing had happened, because now I knew how it felt. I finally understood what they must have felt, sneaking around, lying, pretending. And it was terrifying how easy it was to pretend. He ate everything. Told me he was going to Rachel's office for a quick catch-up meeting. Of course he was. I bit down on the edge of my toast so I wouldn't laugh. After he left, I stood there in the kitchen, shaking. It's not from heartbreak anymore, but from fury. I had been holding it back for too long. I wanted her to know. I wanted both of them to. No, but not yet. Not until I had crafted it perfectly. Because I wasn't going to throw a tantrum and scream in a parking, or throw a wine glass at someone's head, like in the movies. No. I was going to let the truth sink in like poison. Slow, unavoidable. Deserved. I met Kevin again that week. This time it was at his place. Rachel was working late. Again, we didn't sleep together that time. We talked. He told me about the first time he suspected her, how she'd started hiding her phone, coming home smelling like new perfume, taking calls outside. You don't want to believe it, he said, staring into his untouched drink. Keep thinking there's some other explanation, some innocent reason, 'cause you love them, and love makes you stupid. I nodded, because I understood now what it felt like to be stupid, and I hated that version of me. So I burned her, piece by piece. The old Mitha forgiving, trusting, hopeful woman. I buried her under every lie they told, every message they sent, every kiss they stole in secret. Kevin asked me once if I wanted to stop. If we stop now, he said, we can walk away without being them. But I looked him in the eye and said, we already are them. And the truth of it shattered something between us. Because revenge doesn't make you feel clean. It makes you feel equal. Rachel started to notice. Something was wrong. She'd text me and I'd take hours to respond. She'd invite me out and I'd say I was tired or busy. She asked if I was okay, and I said I'm great, never better. And then she did something that made my blood run cold. She sent me a picture of my husband, him smiling, a selfie, taken from her car, no caption. Just the photo, a taunt. That was the moment I knew she wasn't sorry, wasn't scared. She thought she had one, and worse, she wanted me to know. She thought I'd break, she didn't know, already had. And what she was playing with now wasn't a broken woman. It was a fire. So I did what I never thought I'd do. I invited her over. I miss you, said. Let's have wine like old times. She showed up all smiles and fake hugs. Said I looked radiant. I bet I did. Rage will do that. We sat in my living room. Poured her the expensive red I'd been saving. She didn't notice my hands. Didn't shake. She babbled about work, gossip, some new yoga studio, and then slowly, I led her where I needed her to go. Things with Kevin okay? I asked, innocent tone. Tilted head. She shrugged. He's been weird lately, distant. I think he's going through something midlife or whatever. I smiled. Sipped. Oh, I said, you think it's about him? She blinked. What do? You mean? I looked right at her, and in the calmest voice I could muster, I said, I know you're sleeping with my husband. She froze. Her wine glass stopped halfway to her lips. What? Are you serious? She laughed, but her voice was paper thin. No point denying it. I've seen the messages, the hotel receipts, the pictures. Her smile cracked, and then she said something I'll never forget. Well, guess you weren't keeping him very happy. I wish I could say I slapped her, screamed, threw something. But I didn't. I just leaned in and whispered, Then it's a good thing Kevin's been keeping me happy. Her face turned white. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Liar. She hissed. I pulled out my phone. Showed her a picture of Kevin's hand on my waist, taken in his kitchen. The same kitchen she hosted brunches in, then another. His head on my lap, then a video. Just a few seconds. But enough. She stood up so fast, she knocked over her glass. You psychotic B***. She screamed, I stood too.com. Still unshaken, you came into my home. Slept with my husband. You thought there wouldn't be consequences. Her hands shook. I'll tell Kevin. I'll ruin you. I laughed. Oh, sweetie. Kevin already knows, and he knows everything. The silence that followed was delicious. She, left in a fury, slammed the door so hard it rattled the windows. And I stood there in the echo of it, finally breathing again. That night, told my husband I wanted a divorce. He didn't argue, didn't cry. He just asked, is it because of someone else? And I said, it's because of you. It's strange how silence can feel louder than screams. After I told him I wanted a divorce, my husband didn't fight. He didn't beg. He didn't even ask why. That silence, his quiet, hollow acceptance told me everything I needed to know. Didn't love me. Maybe he never really did. He packed a bag and left that night. No dramatic speeches, no slamming doors. He just walked out. Like he was late for a meeting. Like he hadn't shattered 10 years of marriage with a lie he never had the courage to confess. I stood at the window as his car disappeared into the dark. Wondering if I should cry? I didn't, because the grief had come and gone months ago when I first read that message. When I saw Rachel's name on his phone, when I kissed her husband for the first time, this wasn't sadness anymore. It was aftermath. And aftermath is quiet. The next few weeks were a blur of paperwork, emails, cold dinners, and shallow sleep. Rachel stopped trying to contact me, Kevin. T-Daddy in single quotes. He came by a few days later, flowers in hand, apology in his eyes. I shouldn't have. Let it get this far, he said. I'm not proud of what we did. Neither am I replied. But I'm not sorry either. We sat on the back porch. The same one where Rachel had once toasted my birthday with cheap champagne and fake affection. She moved out, Kevin said softly. Didn't even leave a note. Just gone. I nodded. She resurfaced, I said. She always does. Probably with a new guy, new story, new lies. She always wanted chaos, and we gave her fire. Sat in silence, watching the wind move the trees. There was nothing left to say that hadn't already been screamed inside our heads 1,000 times. I didn't know what we were anymore. We weren't lovers. Not really. We weren't just victims either. We were survivors. Scorched but alive. 4. A while we kept seeing each other. Not often. It's just enough to not feel completely alone. We didn't talk about the past. We didn't talk about them. It was unspoken, our own silent agreement to live forward. But living forward is hard when the past is still breathing down your neck. I started going to therapy. Alone. Because I needed to understand why I let myself become someone I didn't recognize. Why I had let betrayal turn me into something just as cruel. And what I learned shocked me. It wasn't just about revenge. It was about control. For years, I had been the good wife, the forgiving friend, the calm one, the one who didn't rock the boat, who made excuses, who smiled when she was breaking, and when I finally snapped. I didn't know how to stop. Kevin was the only person who had seen both versions of Mitha. One before the betrayal, and the one who rose from the ashes. And he didn't run. But one night, I realized something. We were both still haunted. We didn't hold each other like lovers. We held each other like people clinging to the same piece of driftwood in the middle of an emotional shipwreck. And that's not love. That's trauma. So I told him I need space, I said. I need to find who I am without all of this. Without you, without him, without her. He didn't argue. He just nodded. I think I do too. We hugged. A real, long, painful goodbye hug. Then we let each other go. Not out of bitterness, but peace. It took me months to start breathing fully again, to walk past the restaurant where I saw them together and not feel my stomach turn to delete photos. I had once treasured and not cried, to see a couple laughing in a cafe and not wonder what secrets they were keeping, and then one morning I woke up and I felt still not healed, not happy. Just still, in stillness I learned. Sacred. It means the storm has passed. It means the fire burned through everything it needed to. It means there's room now to rebuild. So I did. I started painting again. I traveled alone for the first time. I made new friends, real ones. Friends who didn't have knives hidden behind their smiles. And one day, I saw my ex-husband at a grocery store. He looked older, grayer, tired. He smiled when he saw me, like nothing had ever happened. I didn't smile back, not because I was angry, but because he didn't deserve even that much, and I walked away. A few weeks later, I heard through mutual friends that Rachel had moved to another city. She was living with a guy 10 years younger. Apparently, she was already cheating on him too. Some people never change, but I had. I wasn't the woman who let people walk all over her anymore. I wasn't the woman who smiled through betrayal or buried her pain for someone else's comfort. Was someone who had walked through hell, lit the match herself, still made it out the other side, stronger, wiser, alone, dash but not lonely. And if I ever saw Rachel again, I wouldn't scream, I wouldn't fight. I'd just look her in the eye and smile, because I won, not by stealing her husband, not by getting revenge, but by surviving what she tried to destroy, by becoming someone she could never be, someone free, someone whole, someone real, and honestly. That's the best revenge of all.